Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. As always, want to give thanks to our patrons. We couldn't do it without you guys. Exclusive videos going up on Patreon each week.
Yeah, things we just cannot say on YouTube.
Absolutely. We are also on Brighteon, Rumble, and BitChute as well. And here you go. The Pope opened the first portal on Christmas Day. Well, yeah, again, things are not always as they seem, and we've talked very much about the reality of a intergalactic, interdimensional war that has been documented by every religion and tradition throughout the ages. This is still ongoing. We're actually just going to an all-new place, though, as this is no longer the Kali Yuga. I was mentioning, I think yesterday, how it was exciting to see all these channels coming out of the woodwork, especially the ones that understand, let's say, Vedic astrology and just the Vedas, the Hindu mind. And it's more than the Hindu mind. In many ways, it's the Eastern mind, which is different than the Western mind. We've all faced our own challenges in this world, and in many ways, especially if you are somebody that's endeavored to go deep in meditation, there's different ways of doing that as well. And there's kind of a Western system and an Eastern system. Within each, then there's subsets. What we're seeing here, this is in Tehran, it's pretty wild what we're really seeing around the world. And you have so many different UFOs, UAPs, again, the terminology, does it really matter? Orbs, drones, it gets us thinking about Vimanas. And, each one of these that we see, it poses another question as to its authenticity. Of course, we have to question everything with the ability to CGI, the ability to use AI to such a high degree now. For the average person even, there's programs that can be kind of convincing and make you think something is real when it's not. But then there's also the mindset out there of the control system that wants to make us think some things are real when they're not, and some things that are real are not real.
I think that's where people are at right now. They're looking at the mainstream and they have a keen understanding that, look, if the mainstream is pushing something, then something is wrong. They never, ever push the truth. But people do look to the mainstream anyhow. They think that somehow there's answers there. But whatever the mainstream is pushing, you can really turn it around and turn it backwards. If the mainstream says, oh, we don't have any answers, believe me, they have answers.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense for them to expose everything to you because, again, they control through controlling the narrative, and keeping humanity in the dark has been really the main way of controlling the narrative. Not everybody has been in the dark, though, and when you look at it, what way has dominated the world? When you look to our world right now and you go around city to city, you see the Western way is the way that's dominated the planet. It is the control system, which again, you could say that the dominant control system on the planet in some ways has originated in Europe and spread outward. When you look at colonialism and you see for instance, the colonial powers that are in Africa still to this day, again, dividing it amongst themselves. There are certain countries which, have no diamond mines, and yet they lead the world in diamond production. How is that? Well, because they have people working the mines in the countries that do have the diamonds, and they're just taking them from in a colonial manner. The reality is that's the system that's in place here on planet Earth. It's a colonial system. Everything that we have is given to us by the controllers who have been controlling this planet through the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga, which just ended. And this is the thing I find very enheartening is so many channels saying, hey, 2025 is the year we leave the Kali Yuga, or they're putting question marks up. Well, we did leave the Kali Yuga. We got from the galactics and our guides, which our guides do include beings that are literally in the Hindu scriptures. And these are some of our main guides. Again, when you look to the gods, so to speak, you have to understand, simply put, they're all extraterrestrial, interdimensional beings. They're all not originally from the earth, but then ultimately, if you're talking our souls, Cindy and I are not ultimately from the earth originally. And probably 25% to 30% of you, actually a much higher percentage of the people that listen to us regularly because you're not from here originally. You've had lives on other planets. As this particular sighting was from 2017, from Ukraine. Yeah, these sightings go way back. They've always been here. 2017 is like nothing. I mean, that's nothing. That's modern times still. When you look to the Hindu scriptures, does it talk about aliens? Does it talk about aliens? It talks about hundreds of thousands of different types of aliens. The fact that we're, in a multiverse, meaning our universe is just one of an infinite number of universes. The fact that we are co-creating our own reality, that we are ultimately consciousness, which cannot be destroyed and wasn't created by anybody, because our consciousness always was. We're just having a temporary human experience, and we're not always human. This is all just given. This is the Hindu worldview, and it's bigger than just the Hindu worldview. In reality, when you look at things, you'll find that most of the indigenous people on the planet, in their original belief system, all believed the same thing. So when I was in my studies as a teenager and studying Hinduism and then studying all sorts of pagan philosophies, neo-pagan philosophies, indigenous shamanistic viewpoints, I realized that really what we come down to is there's really only kind of two belief systems. There's a very, very fundamentalist belief system, and there's everybody else. That, yes, you can subdivide this into thousands of different ways, maybe millions of different ways. But the reality is, it breaks down into beings that understand that the universe is created by consciousness, for consciousness, to explore, learn, grow, and to experience, because consciousness ultimately has infinity. So when you have all the time that exists, because time itself is ultimately an illusion, only for us in a particular state of embodiment, then it makes sense to create infinite worlds. Again, in my Father's house there are many mansions. Yeah, it's infinite. And there's infinite worlds. When you look to the Hindu scriptures, and there's many of them, and the number of pages to go through, if you were to put the totality of the Hindu scriptures, and then you could go into the Buddhist as well, which Buddhism comes out of Hinduism, as does Sikhism and Jainism, and there's many others too, subsets that have come over the years with different influences from other belief systems. You will find that Vimanas are everywhere in all ages, but they do change according to the age. And they've been well documented. In fact, there's almost blueprints that have been given to us explaining how things work. Free energy, it was known thousands and thousands of years ago. It was in use. Again, it's only because of the system that's been in play right now that we have any questions about it. And we have more questions about it, more doubts, with people in the Western world, Western mindset coming out of the Western belief systems. Because those in the East, it wasn't eradicated from their minds. It was all still things that were well known. When you're in a dark age or a later Bronze Age heading into the Dark Age, or early Bronze Age heading out of the Dark Age, There's a lot of very, very mechanical Vimanas. And again, Vimanas are ships. These are ways beings get around. Now, when you go into a golden age, you won't really find mechanical Vimanas. They're all literally living light, plasma. They're very, very different. When you look at the world, you again have Christianity and Islam dominating the planet as far as belief system, which, they will say it comes out of the Judaic tradition or the Abrahamic tradition. But when you look at number 3 there, Hinduism with over 1 billion adherents, Buddhism with almost 500 million, and these folk religions, you can see these are in the minority. But here you go, these understand what's going on the planet. There's always been interdimensional beings. There's always been extraterrestrials. There's other beings living on the planet, in inner Earth and also under the seas. And it's openly discussed in detail in hundreds and thousands of pages. It's not like a one little blurb. When you look to the Padma Purana, for instance, here, it talks about different species and how many species are living on planet Earth and how many different humanoid species there are in our galaxy. 400,000 different types of humanoid species. This is just well known. And, if you're coming from a Hindu mindset, descriptions of aliens, extraterrestrials in Vedic scriptures, there's tons of them. And they interact with us. And we knew this. So this was no big deal. It's only a big deal coming out of the Abrahamic tradition because that's the tradition that's kind of done the brain wipe on humanity. It's wiped all this information away. When you see, again, these diagrams, they're trying to almost recreate and show you how it was done, these flying vehicles. Now, again, these depictions are hundreds, if not thousands of years old. Where do we get the information from these Hindu scriptures? Well, ultimately, we get them from extraterrestrials and interdimensional beings that came and told us how the universe works, how it really works. And they sat down and they gave us discussions. Other beings came through in meditation. Why would you meditate? Because when you clear your mind, when you actually clear your mind, you're getting open to receive information. Now, in the Western world, they terrify you of clearing your mind. They try to think that you'll be demonically possessed. I've had people say, oh, don't open my chakras because I don't want to be open to being demonically possessed. But the reality is when your chakras are closed, that's when you can be demonically possessed. That's when other entities could come in and take you over. You want your chakras open because that's your connection to your higher self and to the other realms. So it's the inverse. We're discovering that everything we've been taught in the West is pretty much the inverse of how things really are.
I thought one of the more fascinating things when I was reading through the Vedas is they were talking about the Vimanas and they were talking about different fuel sources, and these different fuel sources and the mechanisms that made these things fly, it was dependent on whatever yuga that you were in. So the Kali Yuga and the Dwara Yuga are going to be different when it comes to the types of fuel that are used to operate these things. So I think we are here on the cusp and we are learning a lot. I think 0 point energy is going to be introduced, and it is being introduced. And I think there's a lot of controllers who are struggling really hard to control the narrative. But now that people, it's like this nut has finally been cracked. So people who were not asking questions before are asking questions now. And this is a time of true discovery. It's very exciting.
Oh, it's very exciting. Absolutely. And we see temples, beautiful temples, intricately done. so much attention to detail. How did they do it? It's kind of mind-boggling. A lot of these temples are given ages that are not accurate. They'll say they're only 1,000 years old or 500, 600, 700 years old, when in reality they're thousands and thousands of years old. And, they are replications of ships that literally came and landed. And some may actually well be ships that have been sort of fossilized over time. Absolutely, this is mind-blowing, but it's a reference to the multiverse, and it's a reference to the fact that consciousness explores in different ways depending on where it is in the grand cycle of the Yugas, and where we are embodied, because we don't always embody as humans. In the Western mind, unfortunately, we lose track of the oneness of everything. And in fact, if you are following a monotheistic point of view, there's God over there and there's you over here. And so when we look at an animistic point of view, then God is in everything. Every single thing is alive, literally. Well, it is interesting, because if you're able to see energy, you'll see that tables, which are no longer technically alive, do give off energy. Everything gives off energy. Everything is always giving off energy at all times. So if you do have a favorite guitar or a favorite car, and you talk to your car and you say, please, baby, I know you need some work, but please just turn over today. I don't want to be late to work. You literally can have an effect on that, because again, everything in our reality conforms to our consciousness. It is another topic for another video, which I want to do shortly after this one. But again, what we're getting in science is what's always been known in the Eastern traditions. It seems crazy and wild to us in the West. Well, that's because they've used the West to be the military and financial arm of the control system. The Western world has dominated and controlled, and then eradicated as much knowledge as possible that we've all had, we all had at one point in time. But some traditions still know. When you see these depictions, again, why are they holding spears when there's a UFO that has much more advanced technology flying right there and the guy's pointing it out? Well, again, because not all of us had that technology. There were visitors that came and went, and they would explore humanity's mind, and they would, depending on the age, plant seeds. When you're talking the silver and the golden age, the seeds that are planted are very, very positive. They let us know, again, you're never alone. This is a temporary experience. When you go to the Bhagavad Gita portion of the Mahabharata, and the human Arjuna is looking down at the battlefield, and he's literally told by Krishna, who is thought to be, again, an incarnation of Vishnu. But when you take that thought of an avatar, we're all, using bodies as avatars. We are not the body. We are not even the mind. You're not even just the thoughts behind, the movements of the body. So your consciousness doesn't really reside in the brain. The brain is just how we basically send the signals through to move the body and to regulate and govern the body. You could view your consciousness as being this quantum field of subatomic particles that creates all that there is. You're out there in the field. Your consciousness is not limited to one place, and this is part of the greater reality. And when you look to the Yoga Sutras, which can be so challenging to go and deep dive into, because you should really take maybe a week or maybe a month, maybe a year on really meditating on just one stanza, because it's so profound, and it is really at the same time so insightful. Most people, especially in this age where we have that TikTok mentality, and we're also we don't have the ability to think as clear as we could in other ages because of fluoride and toxic food, water, et cetera, lack of oxygen in the environment. Again, our environment's been manipulated artificially to lower the amount of oxygen. And we know that things were bigger and that people lived longer. References to Methuselah living 969 years. Yeah, because we've been terraformed in a negative way. And you see it ongoing every single day with the fake clouds in the sky. It's still ongoing. Nothing has really changed except for the fact that now we're in a different yuga, a different age. And the rules change. They can show themselves to us. And there's going to be also knowledge coming out that, again, we've never been alone. In fact, this is part of a galactic, intergalactic, interdimensional, and even it's part of a greater war that's going on in the multiverse itself. When you see, what we get from NASA, never a straight answer, and we see depictions of the Vimanas. Obviously, a lot of things are copies. It is absolutely a copy. And what we see is classic UFOs, from saucer shapes to shapes that don't seem to make sense. And again, a lot of things are purposeful, not making sense. Like here you have wings on something that looks like a gazebo flying in the sky. Yeah, again, in translation, a lot of things get lost, and it's been purposeful. So when you look to these different epics, and there's many, many, many of them, again, if you were to put the entirety of the Upanishads, the Vedas, the Puranas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the entirety of the Hebrew scriptures, and the New and Old Testament are not even a fraction. I mean, 1,000th, 10,000th. I mean, there's so much information in these texts, and it goes on forever. It's kind of overwhelming, but at the same time, every little bit that they've been describing, from how quantum physics works, to the multiverse, to extraterrestrial life, to life on other planes of existence than the Earth itself and in the ocean. It's all there. There's so much there, and it's just so cleanly spoken. As you see, this sage Valmiki had mentioned the word Vimana at least 19 times in the Ramayana. That's just one of the texts. The Ramayana is a great place to start. And, when you look at it, there's different types of ships that are mentioned. And some of them you could equate to, like he says here, Ravana, who is a demon king. Ravana is an Asura. And the Asuras, I would equate to Anunnaki, those that we take as the reptilian, draconian alliance Anunnaki that come to the earth. And what do? Well, they steal human women. They take them to be wives. They have kids with them. It's Genesis 6, but in a lot more detail, because it even talks about some of the ships that he uses. Something that resembles a jumbo jet, kind of like a helicopter. Others are much more like fighters, and others are silent vehicles. It's just wild, but the detail in here is the thing that blows you away. And the fact that people were, just described as, okay, the ship lands, and then these beings come out. In the Bhagavata Purana, for instance, there is a great sage that is visited. What does he see? He gets an emissary from Vishnu, the creator. And how did they get there? They come in a light ship. Then they come out of the light ship. The light ship lands on Earth, where the sage is, and these beings that are humanoid shaped but definitely not human come out and give them a message. It's always been right there in front of our face. And the wars too. Again, Ravana, he kidnaps Rama's love, Sita, and takes her off to Lanka. And you have these Bigfoot-like entities, as I was alluding to, that are working with the good guys, again, to fight the demon entities, that, again, do human abductions and literally either copulate or create artificially other races of beings through their offspring. It's all right there.
Well, we've seen the CRISPR technology. That's obviously been around for eons. It's just now humans have been given access to it, which is very frightening, open access. But I mean, looking at these with my own journey, I had so many questions. As soon as I open my Bible and read a sentence, I have 10 questions, and I wasn't getting quenched. My desire to learn and absorb, it wasn't getting quenched through the Bible. But when I opened up my mind to Vedic astrology, all of a sudden I have all of these answers. So here I find myself learning Vedic astrology for various reasons. But then when Mike and I got together, he's extremely well read in the Vedas. So it was like a dream come true. I get all of these answers, and it was a beautiful thing. And I think that's where a lot of people are now. They're really looking for answers. Their thirst for knowledge is not quenched, but I can tell you, you will find so much information in the Vedas that it's just jaw-dropping. Talk about understanding things to a whole new level and really understanding consciousness and who you are. It's like, who are you? Where did we come from? And how do I find out these answers? And these are things we help people work on so that they can get the answers for themselves, because you can have a lot of different people tell you, but the most important person's opinion is you.
Absolutely. So I'll read you some of this. Vimanas, or flying crafts, as well as aerial cities, motherships, have been mentioned in many places in the ancient Indian texts. There is a colorful description of the Pushpaka Vimana in the Ramayana, in which Rama returns to Ayodhya from Lanka. The Srimad Bhagavatam describes the Sabha Vimana, in which King Salva had attacked Dwarka, the city of Krishna. The Mahabharata tells us of the celestial chariot of Indra, again, obviously a ship, on which Arjuna, a human, traveled to Amaravati, which is the heavenly city of Indra. So again, this is a case of, this is exactly what you're seeing in the Bible with, and again, Enoch and Elijah and flying chariots in the skies, and Enoch walked with God and he was here no more. Yeah, well, this is the same thing. Arjuna traveled to a particularly heavenly city of Indra. The Mahabharata also tells us of large aerial cities belonging to the Asuras and the Danavas, which were furnished with gates, towers, and houses, just like any terrestrial city. In fact, if you want to go into the aerial cities of the Asuras and the Danavas, it's interesting to note that Danavas, the root of that is Danu, and again, it equates to the Tuatha De Danann of Irish and Celtic traditions. These are the same beings that were recognized in Greater India. Mahabharat is literally Greater India, and they were also recognized up in Ireland as well, because they're the same beings. And how did the Tuatha De Danann arrive in Ireland? Well, there were so many ships that it blotted out the sun. Aerial ships, not on the seas, in the air. Celestial chariots. This is the big reveal. It's been there the whole time. Been there the whole time. If people would just simply, look outside of the belief system that you were brought up with, which is limiting your ability to perceive the reality and the truth. So, here you have a couple of these aerial cities been described in detail in the following sections. So this person has selected certain passages. Ravana, the demon king of Lanka, had abducted Rama's wife Sita, which Rama marched there with an army of monkey chiefs, or you could say big feet, headed by Hanuman. After Rama killed Ravana, he installed Ravana's brother, Bibhisana, on the throne of Lanka. When Rama expressed his desire to return to Ahoya quickly, Bibhisana told him about the Pushpaka Vimana, which could take him to Ahoya in a day. So again, different ships that could literally, instead of, marching 20, 30 days, again, or, if they were really using some other sort of locomotion on the ground, we could just simply take an aerial ship of Vimana and get there in a day. It's all right here. That car, bright as a cloud, will transport you to Ahoya in perfect safety. It's here. This is again what is given as, Moses being led by a cloud during the day and a pillar of light and at night. It's always been this. Always been this. And of course, things get fluffed up and made to be a certain way over time. They add in certain details, certain things get lost, but it's so clear. So clear. Again, this has always been an extraterrestrial, interdimensional affair. And, these aerial cars, they're very different. And yet we could see when they describe them that there are some to this day that we see that sound exactly like this. And then in a single day again, he goes there with his whole army of Bigfoot type beings, crossing over the seas and the mountains. Yeah, the descriptions in some cases make it very clear that they're also going over to the Americas from India. And when we look to these battles and all, what's the last major battle we see? It's that horrible battle in which it's given that 1.4 billion people perish, and the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga, begins. Because, in this particular battle, thereafter, Krishna leaves, and Krishna is symbolic for the benevolent ETs. They leave, and then all that is still here, they leave because of really also the frequency of the planet is dropping and dropping and dropping. So, we're no longer exposed to the benevolent ones. The only ones that are there are the ones that are more demonic. And, again, that's when the system comes into full place, and that's when we start to slowly but surely see the takeover of all the indigenous people around the world, and the subjugation of their ways at looking at reality as the dark system rises to absolute power. And thus we have the Dark Age. But the good news is right now, the Dark Age has ended. So again, the light is coming in, and now we recognize, hey, this whole time we've been controlled by this dark force that's kept us totally in the dark, given us belief systems that limit our ability to perceive the truth. And the reality is that we already are eternal consciousness, having an experience as a human being on planet Earth at the turning of the Yugas. And so it could not be any more exciting time, because again, interplanetary travel, yeah, absolutely. There are people that have been off Earth, physically even, with cases of some abductions where literally the physical body has been moved, but most often it's one of the it's the energy body itself. The physical body is the most dense body, and it's just a vehicle for operating in this reality.
And it's much easier for them to take the energy body and work on it and put it back, in a sense, and then the things that they work on manifest themselves into the 3D. So abductions are a really, really funny thing. I mean, they have various different ways that they do it. And most of the time, you're going to find that people, their minds are wiped. They do not know that they were abducted. There might be little signs or clues that there's missing time, little things like that. But Nothing that couldn't be mistakable for, just a slip time. Oh, that slipped my mind. So they're usually very, very careful to make sure that we don't know that we might be being abducted. And then I think there's also the idea that not all abductions are bad. I mean, a lot of times it could very well be our star family that we knew and we agreed to before it happened to make some changes, yet they are not going to openly let us know because that would interrupt our human experience. So there's a lot going on. People are taking in a lot of information, and it's very, very confusing. And in many ways, it's just flat unbelievable. So sometimes that pill might be a little too hard and too jagged to swallow, but sit with it for a little while, gather more information on it, work on your awakening, because it's the most important thing you could ever do in this lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when I want to I know I've mentioned John Levy before. He poses a lot of questions on, these, here you go, concrete ships, our lost history, melted world, this one like over in China. And it's not just him too. There's a lot of other good ones. My Lunch Break. Now I think he is still a little bit more biblically oriented. Again, each person is kind of awakening in their own time at their own pace. And so, he covers a lot of other things, talking about what's really happening, all these civilizations. And Lucius Aurelius is another guy who does a good job. Lucius Aurelian. He is actually a school teacher. And so it does feel very much like, again, a fascinating venture into the robots of Tartaria, the remains of Tartaria. Again, all this stuff, evidence of lands beyond. It's good stuff. There's so many people right now that are exposing this on a big, big level. Yet all the answers, again, for these guys in particular, I don't know if they knowingly hold back some things, because they don't want to go past a certain thing and get hit with a negative algorithm, or if they truly don't know. But if they don't know, just go into these books. It's all right there. Here you go, talking about a vehicle here. Salva chose a vehicle that could be destroyed by neither demigods, demons, humans, Gandharvas, Uragas, or Rakshasas, could travel anywhere he wished to go and would terrify the Vrishnis. When you look at this, all these different types of beings, they're labeled and they have names. And this is interesting because in reference, if we could look at this, they might be saying things like, again, instead of one of these terms, Bigfoot creatures, grays, these are avians, these are, this is what they're really saying. And it's so clear here. On his order, Maya Danava, who conquers his enemies' cities, constructed a flying iron city named Sabha and presented it to Salva. The unassailable vehicle was filled with darkness and could go anywhere. Upon obtaining it, he went to Dwarka. Remembering the Vrishni's enmity towards him, he besieged the city with a large army. O best of the Bharatas, decimating the outlying parks and gardens, the mansions along with their observatories, towering gateways, surrounding walls, and also public recreational areas. From his excellent airship, he threw down a torrent of weapons, including stones, tree trunks, thunderbolts, snakes, and hailstones. A fierce whirlwind arose and blanketed all directions with dust. Thus, terribly tormented by the airship, Sabha, Lord Krishna's city, had no peace. O king, just like the earth when it was attacked by the three aerial cities of the demons. You cannot get any clearer than that. What happened? What wiped this all out? It was these dark extraterrestrials that gave you the very belief systems that dominate the planet.
That's why we are very careful when we see something that's extremely extremely popular and accepted by the masses, that's where I have learned to step back and say, what am I missing? I know that they're telling me all the things that I want to know, but where are the cracks? What am I missing? Where do I need to explore? And the answers are all there. They're all there. This is when you go within and you start your spiritual practice and you start asking and answering the questions for yourself based on all of the information and personal life experience that you have coming in. It is not a short process to go through an awakening. Awakenings can take years, and they can take turns, and your life can change, and things can change on a dime. And usually that's when you're going through an awakening, is when big things are happening and you have these emotional situations that are coming up that you can't fight them off. You don't know what is going on. And there's a lot of people, I think, are having trouble because they can't really go to a therapist. Those that have been learned, have gone to school in the mainstream system to help people with therapy, they're not prepared for what we are going to see. To me, the best thing to do is to go to someone who has been through an awakening and who has had experience with their star family, who is going to believe you and understand you. I do very much get concerned about people who might be extremely sensitive, emotionally sensitive, and they go in and they get therapy, and then they could be branded completely insane, when the reality of it is the person that's giving the therapy, they've been given certain rules that they have to play by, or they could lose their license. So it's not that they're heartless, it's just that they're indoctrinated to such a high degree, they're not equipped for what we have going on right now. And it's going to get big. This awakening is going to get big. And the best thing I can advise right now is be open and be compassionate with yourself and be compassionate with others. Let them take their time.
Yeah, and Dwarka again is we know where it is. Yeah, it's unfortunately in ruins, but there's still things left around. The submerged city of Dwarka is off the coast, exactly where it's said it is, the western coast of India, right here. And so this was Krishna's city that was wiped out again by the reptilian Anunnaki forces. And again, nature is beautiful, and working with nature is one way we can go ahead to reclaim the planet for the light side, because the whole belief system that they give us is that it's God is out there, and you're separate from God. You're separate from nature. No. We have to start looking at the fact that we are all part of something much bigger. It's the oneness of all things that we need to cultivate. And this has to be a big, big change in mindset. And so when we understand that we're part of a larger pack, in fact, a much larger pack. The pack that we're part of is a interdimensional pact of light that wants to share the knowledge, because again, light is knowledge. It's information. And so they have you fearing the light. They have you fearing the sun. They want you to embrace the darkness. But again, the love will conquer all.
It absolutely will. And, as you see all the different species that are here on Earth and the way that they bring new life into this world and the way that they raise that life, I think that's, if you can look at that and apply that to the skies and to the ocean, this is what we have going on with beings that are very much like us with our consciousness. They are out there. They have always been out there, and now is the time that they're starting to show themselves.
Absolutely. So look forward to your comments as always. Thanks for being part of the family. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.